Welcome to Rick's Corner. I have a very special guest today who's a friend of mine, and our kids are friends. And he's a well-known actor, and he had wrestled amateur, and he played football, and he works out. And I would like to say a bodybuilder. He probably won't admit to it, but I think he is, because we all have that in the back of our head when we train. And I'd like to welcome Peter Onorati. And it's been a while, and I've been trying to get you here.
Yeah.
And I got you here now.
Oh, I'm great. I'm glad to be
But
here.
I'm not going to wrestle you.
No.
Because you're younger than me.
Well, I'm a little younger than you, and neither one of us wanted a hospital visit.
Oh, no. I train my guys out here, and I see them taking the bumps, and it just hurts me because I did all that. And I had done a radio show recently with another wrestler from WCW, and he had mentioned to me that, and this sounded weird to me, that wrestling's not a contact sport. Pro wrestling's not a contact sport.
Right.
And I said, why? He says, it's a collision.
That's what it is.
It is a collision.
Yeah.
You're colliding, doing shoulder blocks and bumping and falling all over the place. He says, like a car accident. And I said, this is why I hurt today. Does it make sense?
Yes, and also a little bit of age, add that into the equation. And,
Yeah.
and you don't recover the way you
Nope.
used to. Nothing
Nope.
recovers the way you used to. Get up from a bench press and go on to something else. Now you have to take about 40 breaths and say, oh, what's next?
You still do bench presses?
I do on a machine. I've done everything on machines for the longest time, since way back in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I switched to machines too. I can't do them anymore. They hurt my shoulder.
Yeah.
It's just the dumbbell, and I like dumbbells and I like the free weights and all that, but the machines nowadays are so sophisticated that you can do anything on there.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I switched. I mean, I switched back when Nautilus first came in 1978, when it was first starting, and I actually even duplicated the Colorado experiment that they did with Casey Vieira, who's a genetic freak anyway.
Sure.
So any leaps and bounds he made was probably particular just to him, because he's that kind of guy.
What started you training with weights? What inspired you when you started? How old were you?
You know, I think my first training session was after my father bought me a 110-pound set. I put it in the cellar.
Yeah.
I had a little portable record player that I played the Beach Boys on, because I always wanted to be a California guy, even though I was in the dark and dank cellar in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I never even saw a bench for a couple of years. I mean, I did curls and presses and
like all
squats and like everybody else. And my motivation was, you know, no one in my family except one uncle reached 6 foot. So we're all just a bunch of small little Italians. And I got picked on a lot. I got picked on a lot when I was a kid. I'm starting to write some of my old stories down, and I was reminded of this guy who, when I first got kicked out of Catholic school, and I moved literally 1 block down the street to public school, and this one guy used to beat me up daily, after school, all the time, until one day I was down on the ground, and he stopped beating me up, and I looked, and there were these 2 like stiletto spiked heels, black stockings, and a run from the knee up into a rolled up short dress.
Oh, but he was wearing them?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But she took care of him. Her name was Liz.
Yeah.
And she had him up against the wall, and she said, "Don't you touch him ever again." And so I thought, maybe I should be able to do this myself.
Yeah.
Depending on Liz.
Yeah.
And so that was around 6th, 7th grade, and you know, it was all push-ups and pull-ups and stuff until around 8th grade, when my pops bought me a little weight set.
Isn't that weird that they came in 110 pounds? Why not 100 or 120? Why the extra 10?
Yeah.
I just realized that when you said it. I remember seeing a 110 pound bar. Why?
Well, you know what? I think the philosophy was 100%. No, 110%.
There you go. That's it.
You know.
All right. You are how old?
I am
No. Then.
Oh, then. I was 13, 12 or 13.
Did you consistently work out at that time, or did you take breaks in your workouts?
I took from 8th grade all the way through high school, and all the way through college. I took breaks during my sport. In high school, I played 3 sports, so I really only worked out in the summers.
Oh, I see.
In college, I played only football. I was supposed to wrestle, so I worked out all year long, except during football season. I didn't work out through the season.
Okay.
And you know, and again, you know, with the introduction of you know, to the YMCA and real weights and things like that, you know, all through high school, and then training for football in summer with some of these monsters back east who were all, I mean, you guys were all the original Iron Gods out here. These guys were the ones who aspired to be where you were, and those were the guys who were my mentors, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And so I mean, so I went through the whole free weight thing, and then early on, I would say probably around 1978, which I was already out of college and I was studying for my MBA. I turned just to machines because I didn't have the time. I didn't have 4 hours in the gym. I was working for Ford Motor Company at the time. I was in the business world for 11 or 12 years before I became an actor. And I was going for my MBA. So I felt that those machines were going to be the most efficient and the most optimal performance for the time I had to invest.
Well, we didn't spend 4 hours in the gym. Everybody says, you must have worked out all day. No, we did an hour and a half, maybe two, and then come back in the afternoon and maybe do abs and calves and stuff like that. But all we had was free weights back then. There was no machines in the 60s.
Yeah.
And the 70s, there were really no machines. I mean, they had a Nautilus machine, they had a cap machine. Joe Gold made it.
Right.
So that's what we had to work with. And of course, the YMCA's were really barbaric with the bent barbells and broken cables and all that. Yeah. I made my best gains on it. Yeah. But it seemed as time moved on, and now the machines today are so sophisticated. If you close your eyes when you do a machine and you visualize dumbbells or a bar when you do it, you get the same effect. I feel you get the same effect.
That's something I've discovered. You know, there's a couple guys who walked up to me, wanted to train with me in the gym, and I don't usually do that because I have my workout the way it is.
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
to get in and out of there. But this one kid came up to me, and well, first of all, another guy came up to me, and they come up to me and they go, "Hey man, what are you doing for your biceps?" And I go, "Dude, I'm a lot older than you. You want to go on your own track. You want to go. You don't want to, I'll show you my workout, but it's not going to. You might not feel like it's right for you." He goes, "No, man. I hope I look as good as you when I'm your age." And I go, "That's not the compliment you think it is. So don't throw it around so freely." But this other guy that I just started training with, who's a much younger guy. He's like 32, and he was really interested in doing my workout with me. And what turned out well for both of us was that I do a superset workout. Yeah. And so I get off one machine, I go on the other. Right. And that's my first superset. So we could actually save the machines for each other and still use them the proper way with etiquette for the gym. And I was telling him the other day, I said, as I get older, I fall into this sort of, I hate to use the word, but this, what you just described is more like a Zen thing where you actually picture the muscles working the correct way, and you serve that energy into that muscle system, and it does work the right way, and it feels like the bench.
It does. Your body doesn't know if it's a bar or if it's a machine. It doesn't know. It knows it has to move.
Yes.
And so in your mind, if you're really visualizing you're pushing the bar, you'll throw other muscles into it, and you'll get that play going.
Right.
And his hand positions are really important too.
Absolutely.
Hand positions, just a twist of a wrist. If I push my arm forward and twist a little bit, I can feel my whole pec move.
Absolutely. When people come up to me and ask me about a certain, there's this one tricep exercise that I do, and I've been doing it like this for a long time, and people look at me funny when I tell them, because actually my triceps, I think it's genetics, are the best muscle on my body in terms of development, and they're probably the muscle that I work the least.
Yeah, well, because it's your best. That's why you don't have to.
So, but there's something I discovered. When you get that vision of that muscles work in sort of cross X fashion, that they push and pull, and if you get that sort of mentality, you find certain subtleties that turn your efficiency up 100%.
Oh, sure.
I do this one thing, and I'll give it away. But on the rope for triceps, I take my hands and I make them like a pipe, so that I'm not squeezing and using my forearms as much. And I keep, this is going to be funny, I keep my pinky off like a British guy drinking tea.
I can't do that, Peter.
Oh, you can? Oh, well, yeah, well,
Okay.
You just got to visualize.
Okay.
And as I push down and push out, I leave that pinky off, and just that last digit not being involved in that down pressure, you can feel it shoot up the side and right into the center of your bicep. It's just one little thing.
Well, it works for you.
Yeah. And
it might work for somebody else.
Yeah.
There's little tricks like that. I totally understand that. I mean, I can do the same thing with bicep. When I turn my hand out, I can see the bicep rotating. Yep. Just doing a normal curl is fine, but when you turn your hand from this way, it rotates. When you do a side chest shot, years ago they used to come back and flatten the bicep across the rib cage like this. But if you turn your hand this way, it brings the peak out of the bicep more.
Yep.
It's the same thing with training.
Yep.
Did you know anything about diet back then?
No. Well, the only diet I had was the same thing that the guys who aspired to be you guys, eggs and steak and steak and eggs,
standards,
and, all the protein. That was what we did. I never, and I also my diet was heavily regulated in high school, because when I wrestled, I went from football season to wrestling season, and every year from freshman year to high school, to senior year, I dropped 20 to 30 pounds from Thanksgiving Day to the second week in December to wrestle.
I've seen people do that.
was dumb.
Yeah,
It was,
it's unhealthy.
Yeah, but who knew then? You know, we thought, oh, if I get all the fat off, I'll just be muscle. Nobody knew that fat was your fuel.
It's your fuel. That's exactly right.
You know?
You need to burn that.
Yeah.
What led you in? I mean, you were training, you're an athlete doing all this stuff, and then you decide, I'm going to be an actor. Like so many people that come out here.
Yeah.
But you've been successful at it.
Well, I've had a great career, you know. I mean, things are a little slow now, but they're slow for everybody else
Yeah.
too. But you know, my entry into the acting career came in a really strange way. I was an MBA advertising executive on Park Avenue in New York, and I was messing around with an improv comedy group that my then girlfriend, now wife, was actually the director of. So, so I slept with the director. But we were doing little hole-in-the-walls around New York City doing improvisational comedy. And I had a fight with my boss. Some of my research was published in Advertising Age, and it was about salary and things like that. And she sort of made my life miserable. And my then girlfriend, now wife, Jeanette, said, I think you could be an actor. And I said, oh, really? So I can starve and have 4 jobs like you? So once I took the ice pack off my eye, I decided to try it. I left the business world and I put some money aside and I said, okay, if I'm not an actor when this runs out, then I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
But I had such a blessing of having such a great position in the business world and all that experience that whenever I walked into an audition room, I wanted the job as much as everybody else, but I didn't need it.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference.
Especially in this business.
I know.
And so, and I think that a lot, as a matter of fact, when I got into business in 1987, the stereotypes for commercials, my first year I made a lot of money in commercials. That's how I got my cards for my unions. The stereotypes that they were looking for when they cast commercials were Bruce Springsteen, Bruce Willis, Tony Danza, and Billy Joel.
Oh, you're right in. That's
Right?
you.
Yeah. So
They all got together and had sex, and you came out.
So that's you know, whenever I see them, I thank them all. Actually, I know Tony pretty well, and you know, and every once in a while I go, thanks, Tony, thanks for my career.
Yeah.
And so and then again too, though, I think one of the things that I had, you know, that pertains to what we're talking about here, that was unlike anybody else in my category, was I had a very athletic body,
Yeah.
and that either helped.
Or just the opposite.
Or it was detrimental.
Yeah.
But I was at a point in my body structure that if I put a man-tailored shirt on, I just look like I'm fit. But if I wore a tight T-shirt,
Right.
I could look like what I needed to look like if I needed to
Exactly.
do a bad guy that needed to take care
Well,
of something.
speaking of that, you had a lot of, I saw your reel, you had a lot of fight scenes,
Yeah,
a lot of stunts,
yeah.
and they were good ones.
Oh, they're great fun. I had a 4-episode arc of Walker, Texas Ranger, and for the longest time, my agents, you know, when I was with the big agencies and stuff, they were like, no, you don't want to do that show. You don't want to do that show. I go, no, I want to do that show, you know. So finally I ended up doing it, and Chuck Norris was so wonderful to me.
Great guy.
And respectful. He came up to me, he goes, look, man, I admire your work. If you want to change a few lines around or anything, just talk to me. He said, and here's what we're going to do in terms of your fighting. I said, Chuck, can I make a suggestion? I said, you guys are all martial artists. I said, I have a martial arts background. I have a brown belt in a remote style called Seki Dojo. I said, but I'm playing this character from New York.